Recording is on.
Cool.
All right. Welcome everyone. This is Business Development, October 5th. Sorry, I'm seeing a message from Powers. But we have Simona here from Status, and she's going to speak, and then after her, Daniel will speak on the Daniel token and other collaborations. So welcome, Simona. Thanks for being here. Would love to get to know you and what you're working on and how we can, have a collaboration.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Sky, for reaching out and for inviting me to the call. Little bit of blurb about me in a very swift nutshell. I've been in the ecosystem for about 3 years. Co-founded the Bounties Network, creators of the Sound of Bounties protocol, on top of which Gitcoin sits. We sunsetted that project at the beginning of 2019. I then went on to work a little bit with OSC and Peepo. They essentially pivoted to a Web2 project at kind of the beginning of the year. And I joined Status as head of community last month, I think. No, 2 months ago. And so the idea with everything that I do essentially is how can we create value for users, for the community, for the broader, let's say, audiences that aren't necessarily in our ecosystem yet, and how we can create a lot of IRL projects, pilots, ways of showcasing what crypto can do so that, we get to that mainstream adoption that we all kind of really, really want. And so one of the main things with Status, obviously, because it is kind of a 3-in-1 situation, where it has the chat, it has the wallet, and it has the browser, it's a very, very appealing proposition, particularly from the perspective of, hey, it's only one app and you can do all of this interesting stuff in it without having to hop too much. And the main kind of goal with everything that we've been doing in terms of Status, just for context, I've worked with Status even when I was heading up Bounties, where I needed a wallet for people to be able to fulfill bounties. So Status, because they were mobile, and they were the first mobile other than Toshi, wallet-wise, I went with them for a lot of different collaborations across different ETH Global events. So the idea is this accessibility and what can we do, particularly in regions where, or for people who don't necessarily have laptops or desktop computers. And so this use of mobile is, potentially their main access to any kind of digital opportunity or, resources, different avenues for earning, for discovering, for learning, and so on. So the idea of doing a lot of different collaborations involving this mobile wallet is something that I am very, very keen on. I've already started collaborations with Aave on this whole track of education, of being able to essentially bring DeFi to newcomers in a much more trusted and, let's say, responsible way than potentially just unleashing them onto the crazy DeFi food festival. And that's one of the things that I want to continue doing, bringing different projects to different audiences through the medium of Status, and the fact that it is, a trusted project. It very much focuses on the privacy and security of its users, and it really is staying very, very true to its decentralized mission, to the point where we sometimes move a little slower because we are conscious about not cutting corners when it comes to decentralization. And so, it's, for me at least, it's one of those rare projects that really does stay very, very true to its mission. In terms of XDAI, it's very, very interesting. The switch to XDAI from mainnet is actually incredibly, incredibly simple. And it is the only mobile wallet that does have it so, so simple. You literally go into settings, advanced, you switch to XDAI. And this is one of the main reasons why Sky and I started chatting about, what are the opportunities to collaborate? What are the avenues that we can essentially, broaden the access of people to DXDAO's offerings, to the different projects, to potentially, explore educational routes and so on, so that we do bring a lot more attention and a lot more, let's say, traffic or usability to what you guys are doing, and vice versa. Obviously, as a partnership, it's always hopefully a win-win. And so, yeah, that's kind of it in a very, I don't know if it's an answer. Can I post a link to Status? I can. You will. I mean, we've just launched desktop as well, so. Because one of the interesting things is that essentially we had a desktop that we launched at DevCon in 2018, but we pulled it because we realized there was a lot of work to still do on it from the perspective of usability and efficiency, essentially. So we've just relaunched desktop as well. And the idea is to have this sync between your mobile app and desktop, where you can have those conversations pretty much like a, Discord vibe, but fully decentralized, privacy first application. We're not quite there yet, and it's still not as swish as Discord can be, but I think we'll definitely get there. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Simona. That was awesome. And I can just add a few words. So the cool thing is Status and DXDAO, like, if you're going to come up with two entities in the space that like stress true decentralization, like these are two really entities with a lot of the same values, I think. And Status has probably been doing it for a longer time than DXDAO, so we can learn from each other. At the same time, DXDAO, this is like this will be one of the first experiments. We do lots of experiments where, like, I think it'd be cool to have a deeper, obviously, partnership and that can value both entities. And DXDAO doesn't really have many of these kind of official partnerships at this point. And if we're going to start an experiment with one, Status is a great one to do this with. I think in that post, that DAO Talk forum post, there's a bunch of the ideas that Simone and I had come up with and talked about on how collaborations could happen. Even simple things like how, like, and the whole space is going through this, like, how do DAOs operate? Like, what tools can they use to, like, stay decentralized, have, like, practice good governance and things like that, and having a guidebook around that. And I think Lorraine, who's on this call, may start helping with this, but starting to gather those resources, maybe publish like a co-branded guide on some of the tools, including Status, obviously, as one of the tools that DAOs and decentralized collectives can use, is a cool idea. Obviously, the XDAI support is awesome. Everyone that doesn't have Status Wallet, you should definitely download it and try it out. I did mess around with the desktop one because, like, Augusto and some people also were like, oh, because we use the DXDAO currently uses Keybase, and Keybase is pretty good, like, desktop connected to your mobile, and you can seamlessly go back and forth. But it's not really and now it's owned by Telegram, but now it's not really like it's good privacy, but it's not a crypto first, and it's not a decentralized crypto first product. So the question is, like, at some point, like, could Status desktop / mobile replace, like, that main communication set of channels that DXDAO uses, and I think at some point that could be a possibility. So that's another thing to explore. XDAI support is cool because I think, especially if Omen moves on to XDAI, which hopefully it will move in addition to mainnet, not move,
Okay.
but like if Omen on XDAI is a product that is really easy, it's XDAI is dollar based. There's lots of fun markets. It's cheap. Like Status Wallet, accessing those markets on XDAI will be really easy for people on their phone, and Status would be a great tool to be able to access that. The other really cool thing that was relevant in the last month or so is all of DXDAO's products are, IPFS hosted, are accessed through ens.eth, like omen.eth, and Status Wallet on mobile at least does resolve ENS names like MetaMask. We're having a little bit of a trick with Mesa because I think Mesa is a more complicated application, and it like does some kind of like change of a URL. But you could see Status Wallet is a way to truly, like in a decentralized way, access the actual like IPFS hosted site without relying on a like eth.link centralized service, which is what most people use these days. And so that synergy is also really powerful. And there's a few other things, and just co-marketing and joining our communities together and stuff. So this is all kind of experimental, but I think over the next month or so, if we can move forward on some of these things and see how it goes, hopefully it benefits both communities. And then that would be a good use case to like do more of this type of thing for both parties, I think. So that's the kind of the overall big picture idea. I don't know if anyone has any questions or other comments.
Super exciting, like puristic, extreme decentralization squared,
That's right. Gotta max that decentralized power.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah. Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah. Me. So I have to have the app obviously on the desktop and my phone in order to access like these applications without the centralized hosting, right? So that's
You
like
can have either or.
Okay.
So the core of it is the mobile. So the idea with it when it was created was for it to be a mobile app. But we created the desktop because we realized, particularly for the wide range of different use cases that people would employ Status to essentially resolve, we needed a desktop as well. So the desktop is mainly for people who enjoy or are used to using communication tools and wallets and browsing on desktop as well as mobile. I personally have started doing a lot more on mobile, including even voting on proposals and DAOs and things like that, and contributing to Gitcoin grants and whatnot. But that's mainly because I've done a lot of work in regions where desktop just isn't an option. And I want to be able to, if I, talk to different audiences, let's say in different regions other than the classic Western Europe and maybe Asia and Australasia and so on, and the States, I want to be able to give them something or to employ something that is very, very usable, which is why I do a lot of mobile.
Yeah, Simone, I think we talked about in developing countries, like if people are going to use Web3 for bounties or for Omen or for sending money or for storing value, like they all have mobile phones. They don't have
and really good ones.
Web3 is going to have to go mobile to gain popularity. I mean, to get wide adoption. So
just as an example on that, when I did a campaign over in the Philippines, most people had mobile phones. They did not have laptops or desktop computers at home. The same in Brazil. I'm working on an educational project in the Brazil favelas. The kids there and the youth that we were interacting with, they have mobile phones, and actually really good ones, but they do not have, desktop computers or laptops. Venezuela, the same. Argentina, some the same. So it's an interesting one. I think the more we can do on mobile, the better. And then desktop is a nice to have.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, dope. So I think there's like a few directions we could probably like engage on. So I'm sure you had some ideas, guys, like what would be like some of the first steps you could possibly take, or like what are you like, what most inspires you about like first doing, I guess.
Yeah. So in that document, it outlines a few of the things. I think this like joint guide would be pretty cool. I think co-marketing, like to allow people to access DXDAO products via mobile, like recommended on status, and like if ETH.link is down, like you can resolve using MetaMask on your computer, or you could resolve to the sites using Status Wallet. But yeah, we can.
Question.
I mean, there's more ideas to explore, so we can keep
I was just going to say an interesting one to maybe kick it all off with would be potentially a blog post where we set the scene for this commitment to decentralization, and then potentially hint at some of the, we would decide what the initiatives would be. Like, is it a guide for building in Web3? Is it, do we want to do some sort of course about XDAI or whatever, right? So we decide on some of the things that we want to look at, and then we can just have a very high level value alignment blog post to begin with, and then we can dive into the practicality, the practical stuff afterwards.
Yeah, and one like more official thing is, because these are all still ideas of a bunch of people, but I plan to do a signaling on-chain proposal to kind of ask if the DXDAO would like to do an official partnership with Status, kind of thing, to make it kind of like an official, because I mean, it'd be similar to the forum post with some additional ideas, but like to make this like the voice of DXDAO versus like a few people talking about this, right? So that would be like next step, and then we can go from there, I think.
Yeah.
I was wondering maybe like how is Status hosted? Is it entirely on IPFS, or does it rely on something else also?
That's a very good question. Let me find the full stack for you of because a lot of the stuff that we've had to build from scratch. Because there was nothing there. Where is it? But essentially, there's a lot. It's like iceberg level when you start looking at everything that's been built to support everything that's there now. Hold on, I've got it here, and I'll pop the link in, because that will just be super easy for everybody to then dive into. Here it is.
The chat protocol is using Matrix, right? And then it's basically a front end built up on top of that.
Yes.
Yeah, and then a bunch of extra feature. I mean, it's an app, so obviously the code has to be centralized.
It's not though. Hold on.
Thank you. Is that?
Can you see the
Infrastructural layer, is that?
everything that I posted? And then in about, you can see the full stack here, where you have Nimbus there, VAC, libp2p, and so on. So here's the stack.
Nimbus is the mobile client, right?
Mm.
The Ethereum mobile client.
So if you look at that about, it like lays it all out, and how they sit on top of each other.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's one of those super difficult things because, for instance, we had a, I mean, maintaining this, the privacy and the decentralization angle, it's, like I said, it's, you know, delayed, or not delayed, but for instance, we don't integrate with Wallet Connect because it has certain centralized points. We don't sometimes, well, we don't pull NFTs as other wallets do, because that would mean we would interact with the OpenSea API, and that would involve a certain degree of information exchange that just doesn't adhere to the privacy mission. So there's a lot of interesting complexities that come into play when you are like really trying to do it properly.
Yeah, so it's a lot of it is privacy, like it's decentralization, but it's almost privacy first and then decentralization. Right?
Basically. So a lot of it, like the whole idea with it, was very much along the lines of preserving anonymity and privacy in transactions, in your, you know, user information, and so on, to the point where one of the, because initially when we launched it, and you'll see even when you join it, it assigns you a random 3-word name. Now you can obviously get an ENS name and so on, but another really cool thing that we just launched is that you can actually, so you could save people to contact so you knew who they were, but now you can assign a nickname to them. So you actually, so for instance, Sky, I could, if he doesn't have an ENS name, I can save him as Sky on my phone, but that just happens locally on my device. It doesn't compromise his anonymity globally. Right, so he can still have his 3-letter name, and
that's cool.
Yeah,
this privacy thing is a massive problem in the Ethereum space, and that
agreed.
To solve it, help. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks, Simona, for that entire recap, and we look forward to a partnership. So I think we can probably move to the next topic.
Yeah, awesome. Find me in status. I'm already connected to Matt, but I'll pop my chat link in here, and yeah, let me know any other questions. And thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Simona. Cool. So next we have Daniel. Are you there?
Yes.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thanks for having the discussion there in time. So basically, just to give a bit of context, the Daniel token is in partnership with already quite a few communities. So there's DORG, there's Roll, there's Maskbook in Cuba, Fat Garage, and BitForward, and the launch is planned basically pending on DXSwap allowing it. And this particular call, what I wanted to kind of share are the details for what I believe would be the immediate role for the launch part for DXDAO. So like, what is partnership with DXDAO on the launch part, and I'm quite excited about it. I spoke to the DORG crew, so Thomas and Hector potentially, and some other potentially new DORGer to start considering the follow-up with liquidity mining and other stuff that will follow once the token is live. So I just clicked like send on the specific of DXDAO's role for the launch. basically the deal that I think of is DX investment banking, which is for DXDAO to be the underwriter of the majority of the Daniel token sale. And the way that I was thinking of doing it is DXDAO basically allocates DXD token worth up to 60% circulating supply of Daniel and puts it as liquidity in DXSwap. I'll put the tokens for the Daniel on DXSwap, or I'll give it to DXDAO to do that thing. And basically that guarantees the floor price of 2 cents or 2 cents per Daniel. And the sale basically then happens straight on the AMM. And the upside here is that there is no loss because the liquidity provision comes from DXDAO. So at worst, you're basically like withdrawing the DXD. And the upside that I offer is 50-50 split between price increase from 2 cents per Daniel. And right now already like there's kind of good demand for people that have been hearing about the project. So yeah, I basically wanted to have this call to start socializing the idea, get some feedback, and see like if this can go through. I'm basically working on a whole kind of launch documentation so that I'll put it on DAO token, submit an official Alchemy proposal, etc. Oh yeah, I forgot. There's one important project partner, which is Seed Club. So Seed Club is in partnership with Roll and Alex and June and a bunch of enthusiasts in the personal token space. So I got accepted to the first cohort with Daniel project. And there's after the launch, there's other things in personal token DAOs that I'm looking at that could be also interesting. But for this specific call, it's about the DX investment banker liquidity provision role. So yeah, just if there's any questions, any feedback and comments, would be great to have this discussion.
Well, most personal tokens up to this point are not really sold, right? Like they're community tokens that are injected out into communities around a certain idea, such as like whale token and things like that. What's the purpose of like doing like an actual sale to raise money?
Yeah, cool. Good question. So actually, it's there are already quite a few personal tokens that were sold. Alex was the first one. It's initial personal token offering, I guess, IPO. Then Kerman also did it, and they did it with direct sale. Basically, people deposited ETH or whatever, and they sold their tokens straight with a transaction. The idea of doing it with DXDAO is to bring together different stakeholders, different partners, and what's to do with the proceeds is already a different topic, which is like what's the utility here, and I think I shared previously when I was still looking at the Mesa auction potential. So the Daniel token is going to be focused on social impact. So most of the funding that will come from Daniel sale is going to be allocated to different social impact projects that I'll be either advising or sponsoring. And the example for such projects that I had from last year was the refugee crypto tech literacy program that we had partnership to run in Syria last year. And basically we struggled with getting funding for it for follow-up. So like a part of the motivation is that, but I'm also planning to take a little bit more how to say, corporate responsible approach, in the sense that I want projects to be very much with sustainability in mind and not just be some charity project. As much as I like it, I also feel like it's not like, if you want to give people fish, all right, you'll feed them for a day, but I'd rather like build the project such that you give people the knowledge for how to fish rather than the fish itself. Yeah.
Thanks, Daniel. I have a question on the floor price. So if DXDAO agrees to do the DXD with the Daniel into DXSwap, is that like what percentage of this? So 60% of Daniel would go into that pool with the DXD to start. Is that correct?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
Where would the other 40% of Daniel be?
Yeah, so there's DORG, which are going to help on tech, so they're going to get some of the tokens. There's Maskbook. So Maskbook is, in case you guys aren't familiar with it, it's like an encryption and privacy layer on top of Web 2. So you can basically like send on public distribution channels like Facebook and Twitter, you can send encrypted messages, or you can send also crypto. So I'm basically, in order to create more than one distribution channels, we'll take the average price of the DXSwap sale and then sell through Maskbook to some of the people that would want to buy direct initial Twitter offering. So we'll buy it straight on Twitter. And yeah, basically there are like a few different partners that the rest is going to go to.
I guess I'm trying to understand what kind of downside risk the DXDAO would be exposed to here. Because if it was 100% of the supply, right, there would be no risk for DXDAO, right? The floor price, but we would never like lose any of that DXD, right? But if there's other free supply that could be sold into the market, we have the potential to actually lose DXD on this.
Yeah. So that's why the majority is through the DXD. The other thing is that it basically is to drive DXD utility, because I was thinking that this would be the only token pair. So that means that people that want to buy the Daniel token will have to get DXD first. So like ETH to DXD, which maybe is a bit of a like UX hassle, I guess. But what do you guys think?
Well, it shouldn't be too much of a UX hassle, because as long as DXDAO has a decent DXD to ETH pair on DXSwap, people should be able to route through DXD and use ETH to buy Daniel directly through the interface, even though it's taking.
Yeah, but I mean, it does add like that extra step basically, which like how big of a deal is it?
There's no extra step for the user. It's only a little bit more fees because it goes through both pairs. There's a little bit more gas fees. Yeah. So is the other? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I thought the Maskbook I think is interesting, but I guess so for that other 40%, like couldn't Maskbook just plug into DXSwap when they're doing kind of you said the initial Twitter offering or whatever that was? Like, where's that risk? The 40% going to actually sit?
Yeah. So right now, basically there is a Seed Club. So Seed Club is incubator for personal tokens. So they're going to get a bunch of the tokens, and it's basically they're like an accelerator, right? So this is their position. So of course, like they can be assholes and dump the token, but this is kind of like not the objective of why they are incubating projects. So a part of the tokens, it's basically 5% is going to Seed Club. Roll is going to hold some as well, because Roll is the launch partner. Basically, like all of it is running on Roll for now, and the rest is basically for the builders that are helping, right? The main chunk that is outside of this 60% is, and by the way, this is like up to modifying, right? Like this is just the initial like figures that I laid out there. So the reason to sell some on Maskbook was intentionally to have another distribution channel, because if everything is just on DXSwap, then the price can actually like increase a lot as well, right? Which then would like there would be like a inability for some people to really get in. So I was thinking that we can circumvent it by opening another distribution channel. And that's where like the allocation for Maskbook for 19% and then 1% to like give them as launch partner basically for floor price. So same floor price.
there any lockup for the other 40%, or it's all going to be freely circulating?
I think it's all going to be, yeah, actually there is an important here. This is like from circulating, right? Then the rest is vested for 3 years, right?
Okay, so what we've been talking about so far is just the circulating supply.
Yeah, the circulating supply is 30% of the total.
And how is the rest vesting, or what?
The rest is vesting monthly for 3 years.
And how long would DXDAO be providing liquidity on DXSwap for? Is that like the idea indefinite, or?
Yeah, I was thinking for the discussion of today specifically, just for the sale. What happens after that we can already discuss, and there's a bunch of other ideas with the personal DAO that that I'm incubating with the Seed Club guys, and that would be already like next chapter of the project. How, like, where does the token live? What is it being used for, etc., etc. But for the sake of the conversation, what I was hoping for is to get that like DX investment banker deal. And I believe that the upside, basically, like, I believe that it's going to be like widely in demand. And then the role that DXDAO should be playing here is being this like IPO partner, and then at some point, hopefully in a matter of like a day or two or up to a week, be able to like secure back the initial plus profit of the liquidity provision.
Yeah, and I like that idea, and I think it would almost be a no-brainer if there wasn't free supply elsewhere that could potentially be dumped on the market, right? Because then there would be no downside risk. But I think we have to be a little bit careful if other partners or people are getting allocations early on and could potentially dump on the DAO, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. And we were talking kind of more, I think, about personal tokens last week. And I really do love the idea of DXD being like a base currency for that. And kind of, yeah, and this this is kind of a great model for that. I do think the analogy of investment banker is actually pretty apt here. And I think in this scenario, because DXDAO would be supplying that 60%, backing it with DXD, it does seem that DXDAO is kind of taking on that underwriter role. And so I'm just thinking about when you do have that underwriter role, thinking through the risk and potential upside from that. So I'm just trying to think through that right now, but it is a little complicated with all the moving parts. But I think the personal tokens are something we should think about a lot for DXSwap.
Yeah, I mean, I could propose a lockup for the rest of the partners so that it secures the launch period. This is like another option to consider, which I'm happy with.
I mean, if there's a launch period, then I think that would basically eliminate the downside risk for the DAO, right? And obviously that would be more appealing. But
yeah, like giving basically like a week or something like that.
Yeah, for whatever the period is where DXDAO would have the liquidity in DXSwap. Yeah, I don't know what that would be, but
yeah. By the way, this is just for context. We're talking about, it's not like a project. How to say? It's not like a DeFi protocol token sale. We're talking about like a relatively small sum for the whole project. Yeah, like it's intentionally like social tokens, personal tokens. This is not some crazy DeFi protocol. This is like a utility experimental token that is all up the 30 something grand going in the sale here for the floor price. So I guess lockup to reduce the downside risks is something that I'll be considering. I'll basically like see whether it's relevant to suggest that everyone would be on lockup, or maybe at least those that hold like significant amounts, like significant portion. But then otherwise, any other feedback on the risks or comments? General sentiment before I submit proposals and stuff?
What would be the process of like would that liquidity be there like forever, or would it be returned? Like after the sale, would the DXDAO withdraw, take back the DXD, send you back your Daniel tokens? I'm just curious, like what the end of it looks like.
Yeah, so the ideal scenario here is that basically there is demand and people buy off the curve the Daniel tokens, and like naturally price appreciates to a certain point that price discovery guides it to. And by that point, hopefully it's not going to be liquidity, like, as I said, like a big project and whatever, but hopefully there is enough liquidity for it to be such that DXDAO can at least like secure, like withdraw back the initial value of the floor price plus whatever profit that is like a target profit set. As an investment banker, I guess like it would be like wise to have a target for, you know, like get to 1 week and this margin. And yeah, the rest is like markets live and open, and whether you want to support with liquidity the market because you will feel like there's potential upside or not, that could be already like another discussion. I was already starting to work with Diorg on the with Thomas from Diorg on the liquidity mining. So we're looking at either doing it the synthetics model or Ampleforth or some kind of a hybrid. There's a contract that now is being audited for allowing people to harvest even if it's like an Ampleforth type model. So people are still able to like lock for a longer time, but then also harvest during that time whatever it is that they have. And I'm basically thinking of allocating a very significant or potentially all of the amount of the Daniel that is being vested to those pools to create, like to incentivize. And this potentially can be happening on DXSwap, right? Like instead of Uniswap pools, like we can basically open up a liquidity mining pool with DXD and Daniel token and get those contracts that Thomas is working on for that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that long term, there's still to discover like what would be the best thing for DXDAO, but short term, basically, it's focused specifically on this launch.
So if the sale goes really well and let's say $100,000 are raised, and this is a social impact token, so like for good, right? You're saying $50,000 goes like into the DAO treasury. I'm sorry, the Daniel treasury, and then $50,000 goes into DXDAO.
If you're talking about the pure margins, then yeah.
So I'm just like, if DXDAO helps with this sale and it's a social impact for good token, and then like the DXDAO makes $50,000 from it, it just seems kind of not appropriate, right?
Yeah, so let's separate here between the roles. Daniel tokens and the proceeds, I'm personally not going to profit from it. Basically, I'm going to allocate it to those projects, right? So this is where the social impact is. DXDAO here is being commissioned as an investment banker service provider. So if you choose to also like participate in the social impact project besides the service provision, then this is a whole other discussion. But like, you know, let's not mix the roles here for a moment.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Basically, like just because the platform used is DXDAO investment banking and DXSwap, etc., for the sake of the social impact project, doesn't mean that the platform itself need to be a partner for the social impact project. I'm more than happy that like if DXDAO would want to be a partner here, but basically like I'm extending this offer as something that could be profitable for the service provider.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to hear what people think about DXDAO helping with this service to like make revenue for DXD holders, potentially a big amount of money, or like participating in the social for good part of this, like, and what DXDAO thinks about that.
Yeah, actually, Simona has a good idea here. We can say that DXDAO commits a portion of the profits to Gitcoin grants.
You could basically
some...
switch it from social goods to public goods. And then that will give you exposure, because then, you know, let's say Gitcoin will also amplify it and so on. And then you also have that angle of, yes, well, we did make some money, but actually we gave 50%, 60%, whatever the decision is, to round 8, which will happen in November.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
Mm. So that's always an option. Plus, they always want more funding, right, for the rounds. So it's not like the money would go to waste or wouldn't be used, right?
All right. Any final thoughts?
Lastly, it would be cool if Massbook integrated with DXSwap.
Yeah, it's actually an option because they are integrated with Uniswap.
Yeah, so I think that would be really cool to push for that. Actually,
Yeah,
Suji is in our Keybase, so that's cool. That cool tool.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential here from these collaborators on this project. And I think it's like good meme, good kind of meme flex for DXSwap launch and for DXDAO in general.
Yeah, I'm excited about the potential here and the example this could set too. And yeah, didn't mean to say that like DXDAO shouldn't take any risk on. I just think we should quantify it and make sure that's very clear.
John, do you see a difference, like this kind of service as DXDAO operating as an investment banker is another product that DXDAO can offer to, you know, create revenue for DXD holders? Is a slight difference when it's around like we're helping a project raise money to like build a business, and we take a cut of that for the service we provide, versus it being the same thing but on like a social impact token, as like in this specific example, which we can adjust what we do with the proceeds, I guess, in this case. But
yeah, I like what Daniel said about kind of distinguishing. You know, there's the service itself, and I think there's an opportunity to set an example of like what that fee structure should be for any type of sale. And then separately from that, if it's a social impact project or, you know, for whatever, you know, more of a philanthropic effort, then DXDAO can like decide what to do, you know, that's appropriate on those with a case-by-case basis.
cool.
Yeah, as a product, like I totally just put 50-50 as a starting point. Like if you think that there's a different pricing model, and maybe like for some projects that are more concerned about it becoming a profitable sale, they would think that 50-50 split is too much for what they would give up for. So like I'm happy to have this kind of discussion. I guess like for today, I just wanted to share this, circulate, get the feedback, and then I'll put it in writing on DAO Talk and get kind of in writing feedback, and then I'll proceed to put the Alchemy proposal, and it will be essentially like a signaling proposal. I don't know how would we actually end up doing the liquidity provision part itself, given that I'm particularly thinking that it should be DXDAO that, from risk perspective, DXDAO that basically like holds the liquidity and not that like the liquidity is being commissioned to an external party. So I don't know actually like technically how it work, but I'm happy to also like hear if you guys have any ideas.
Yeah, we can follow up on the technical details. Like there is a relayer, a liquidity relayer in the works right now that may be going into audit shortly. And we would probably use that to supply the token. So I think it may even be just the first step would be that you send Daniel token to the treasury, and then there's a proposal which sets up the amount of DXD and Daniel to go into this relayer, and then that provides the liquidity into DXSwap, or maybe you wouldn't even need the relayer. I'm not sure, but we can figure out the exact technical details on this. Yeah.
Cool. I just want to make sure that like we don't end up delaying for half a year for some audits and stuff, because I already delayed for DXSwap to be live, and I kind of feel like I really want to get it off the ground. So
yeah, to give you some context there on timing, I'm still hesitant to commit to any dates, but the core contracts are under audit right now and should be done with that this week. So I think like the actual deployment of the DXSwap contracts could be happening, in the next couple of weeks. And but then the point at which you would want to go live with this, we would probably need also this kind of the relayer and sufficient liquidity from the treasury to be. And so that will probably be, maybe some more weeks. So I don't know. I mean, it's not going to be half a year, but it may be a month or two before everything.
Yeah, that's
is
too
in
long.
place.
Prohibitive.
Yeah.
Is there a way around it? Because like a month is already too prohibitive.
Can we switch to DXSwap though, because we're running out of time? We kind of spent a lot of because we are kind of talking about this, and it would actually kind of give more insight into that, and I have some things to say about that. Because obviously we're kind of juggling a bunch of different things with DXSwap, and personal tokens are an important part of it, but we're like sending $1 million on Ethereum. So there's some moving parts with that. I had talked about, I sent a document kind of halfway last week meeting, and then I kind of did a little bit more on it in like a Google Doc format. And this is kind of like the equivalent of a slide format, just to kind of go over some of the main things that we've been talking about and make sure everyone's on the same page. Obviously, there's still a lot of things up in the air, but just being on the same page in terms of that uncertainty, in terms of the audits, in terms of different things, I think is kind of the best thing. So just the things that we want to talk about real quickly. I know it looks long, but we'll go quickly through it. Product positioning. Throughout this, we're talking about almost two different things, right? There's DXSwap protocol, right? And there's DXSwap.eth. One is a consumer-facing product. One is like an efficient on-chain liquidity pool. And so those are running concurrently and are oftentimes will be, for the most part, strategically aligned. But there will be some times when those priorities will not be aligned. The kind of key advantages and distinguishing features of DXSwap, these we should all be kind of familiar with, but just as to kind of go over them in the initial launch and go to market phase, I would put this in for the next couple months. One, lower fees for traders. This comes from DXDAO supplied liquidity. There will be DXD rewards and LP incentives. And then obviously token partners, Daniel would be an example of this in the personal token. Long-term positioning, governance is the way that DXSwap distinguishes that. Even from a base level, the front end is obviously DXSwap.eth will be governed by DXDAO, and that provides some ability to be able to plug in different protocols and different things into the background. And then the liquidity pools themselves have the ability to be governed by the liquidity providers. There still needs to be the implementation on that. This part, we put these into 3 different buckets. And, I actually just this morning put some weeks or the numbers on these. So I hope John doesn't hate on that, but just there's kind of 3 different chunks of things that I think are how we're kind of working through this. So one would be deployment and DXSwap.eth launch. So this you can see would include on the protocol. This would be all of the core contracts deployed, the DXDAO supplied liquidity. We would need one DXDAO token list at the smart contract level. And then on the front end, this work has already been done. Incorporate the latest Uniswap UI changes that they added a couple weeks ago, and add some small color changes to help distinguish DXSwap. And then other things also being worked on, the DXSwap.info that Nico has been working on. So this would be something I would consider like the minimal viable kind of product. Next would be what I'm calling the DXD rewards aggregation and front end stage. So this would maybe be in the 1 to 2 months period after that. Some of the protocol changes you could see, the actual router to be optimized to include Uniswap, SushiSwap pools, and then potentially also a more flexible token list on chain. And then the front end, as we've been talking about, this kind of aggregated list where we take several different lists, where it's the CoinGecko, the Claros, also the DXDAOs, and try to indicate and provide like a liquidity score and like a confidence score. That will be, there will be some work on presenting that. And then the front end, also having a DXD page for liquidity mining, and we've talked about having a quote unquote fake page for pool governance that's maybe grayed out, that shows some of the potential that will be coming in the future, and then some small UX UI upgrades. Other things kind of in this stage, obviously we're gonna have to figure out how to calculate rewards and distribute them, partner integrations, and then potentially adjusting DXDAO supplied liquidity. And then the third phase, or so to speak, is the pool governance and protocol upgrades. And this is kind of a catch-all primarily for what would be the end state of the liquidity pool governance. And this will take a bit of work, but I think it's kind of important to highlight that and to show what we're building for. The major events, and this is based off of some of the things that we had on discussion on Friday. So there will be contract deployment, as we said, by anyone. So someone needs to find Andre's address and see if we can deploy DXSwap from there, and maybe we'll get a lot of free liquidity. But as John was giving kind of update on the timeline there, that's moving very quick, and that's actually would be the immediate thing, and that would be live on Ethereum mainland. And then we would switch to a front end that would be hosted potentially on dxtest.eth.link, where anyone could be supplying liquidity and we could be testing it out right there on the front end. And then you can see the last kind of 5 there ones are things I'm just calling public events, but things that I think could potentially have some marketing appeal. One, DXD supplied liquidity. This is the first DAO really to launch a protocol with its own funds. And that's kind of a cool thing. And then 2, the DXSwap.eth launch, having that be a public event just as a kind of the product launch and gathering some additional attention. DXD rewards, router aggregation, and then pool governance, all of which I think are opportunities to talk about some of the features and kind of brand of DXSwap. Lastly, still working on, these are just some things that I think were kind of ongoing and maybe more up in the air. The router integration, understanding the concepts of that and how to build that out and on what time. The base pairs from the front end, there was an article actually about this last week that was shared around, but John's been talking about it for a couple weeks about how Uniswap's front end basically favors certain base pairs. And so DXSwap could include more base pairs, but also use this as an opportunity maybe to partner with some other projects. And then DXD rewards, we still got to figure out some things on that. And then pool governance and UI, UX, I think are kind of just like the never-ending things. So just wanted to kind of give update on where things are at and kind of how the thought process is going. I'll share this doc there, but wanted to see any questions. I know we're running a little bit over time, but hopefully this is just kind of a way so we can get on this same page and try to plan for the next couple weeks.
I think that all looks good. I would just say that for the purpose of the liquidity from DXDAO, that timeline might be more like 3 to 5 weeks.
Which technically is 1 to 2 months, but no. Yeah.
No, I think you had it in the first. It's in the first
Oh.
slide, right? Like
Oh,
the
okay,
1 to
yeah,
3
yeah.
weeks. So yeah. I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. I see what you're saying.
Because I mean, I don't want to spend too long on this, but like the plugin manager itself, it's up to 16 days to be approved by the DAO. Once we add that scheme, and that scheme's almost ready to go, but it's not final. And even once that's final, it's another potentially 2 to 3 weeks just to get the proposal live. So just to get the scheme live.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's important that would kind of be more in that second phase.